Feel anxious because I feel anxious. That's often the starting point when someone reaches out. Anxiety can feel like a shaking, undefined mass, something you can't quite get a hold of. Thoughts bounce around like pinball. Your internal speed rises. Heart pounds, and uncomfortable emotions settle in like they own the place. The situation is not hopeless. Problems need to be externalized. The mass needs to be broken into threads. And often, the way forward is writing, finding a connection to your inner world through concrete practices. When words capture experience. When you find a word or expression that fully captures your experience without residue, it can bring immense relief. Condensation is an act of mercy toward yourself and a bridge to others. Writing is not useful only for anxiety. It can be applied to almost any struggle, transition, or life experience. The foundations of writing therapy. Once something is put into words, a thread separates from the mass. The experience takes shape, and at the same time, a relationship to it is formed. The subject and the object become distinct. This is the architecture of Western thinking, Cartesian dualism. Narrative therapist Alice Morgan suggested that writing helps externalize problems so that they move outside the person and even take on an active role. For example, what is my anxiety trying to make me feel right now? Problem is the problem. Person is not the problem. Writing as a bridge. Writing can help separate something from you, but it can also connect you to something unknown, something beyond the material, beyond everyday perception. This connection can be your unconscious, something spiritual, a philosophical sense of meaning, the mystery of life itself. Bypassing conscious control, free flow writing, and uncensored reflection become a kind of prayer without dogma. Radical honesty. Writer Henry Miller once encouraged people to forget about themselves and observe the world around them. Psychotherapist Brad Blanton takes this further with his idea of radical honesty. Observation comes before thinking, especially when facing something new. An observation requires honesty. Without it, we fall into socially acceptable self deception. Even Marcus Aurelius asked, what is this phenomenon in its essence? From senses to thoughts. Start with your senses. Write what you see, hear, feel, smell. Then move to bodily sensations, then to internal movement. Only after that, move to thoughts. And here, radical honesty becomes essential. According to Blanton, much of human suffering comes from constant lying to ourselves and others, in an attempt to protect relationships or reputation, but the result is alienation. Even movements like Alcoholics Anonymous build their foundation on radical honesty. The story you tell yourself. Your relationship with yourself is the core of all healing. In that sense, the self is a story you tell yourself, and the story is a choice. You cannot undo the past, but today's tragedy may become tomorrow's comedy. That is the promise of both writing and psychology. Worry is misused creativity. When your mind is overloaded, you need empty space. At the same time, social media, expectations, and group pressure pull you away from yourself. So you must be willing to write absolute nonsense, garbage, without self-criticism. Dramaturg Juha Siltanen once suggested in a conversation, the only real value a text may have is to its writer. Exercise 1. Do-it-yourself psychoanalysis. Many people struggle to start writing because they try to be both creator and critic at the same time. Writer Natalie Goldberg offers a solution. Write in white font on a white page. Even better, turn on dictation, lie down, close your eyes, and begin free association. Write, dictate, or vomit out whatever comes to mind. Words, fragments, sentences. Hit enter constantly. Assume your fingertips or your voice are wiser and more honest than your conscious mind. You're just the vehicle. Ride the wave of associations without censorship. Don't worry about grammar or spelling. Just keep up with your thoughts and fingers. Let your intuition be the captain. Even Sigmund Freud analyzed himself, so why shouldn't you? Save the text, come back later, turn the font visible, and see what emerged. These fragments are signals from the gray zone of consciousness, signposts toward the unconscious. Your goal? To make the unconscious conscious, without shame. Exercise 2. 3 life stories. Write 3 versions of your life story, from past to present. Version 1. The prosecutor. Judge the world, blame freely, be Zeus on Mount Olympus, throwing lightning bolts. No balance, no nuance, no restraint. But keep yourself in the driver's seat. Version 2. The victim. Write as a complete victim. You're an object drifting without control, a martyr in an arbitrary world, piece of bark in the current without compass or direction. Version 3. The naive version. Imagine your life as a Disney film. What is the lesson? What is the arc? What is the hopeful ending? Notice which version is easiest or hardest to write. That already tells you something. The next stop is transformation. The prosecutor becomes a challenger, the victim becomes a survivor, the naive version becomes grounded coach. This exercise is inspired by Stephen Cartman's drama Triangle and later developments by A.C. Choi. Exercise 3. Three letters. Most problems are relational. Write three letters to an important person. What you want to say, what they would realistically reply, what you wish they would say. When you subtract the second from the third, what remains is often your disappointment and your grief. Exercise 4. Writing through trauma. Professor James W. Pennebaker showed that writing improves health. For 2 to 4 consecutive days, write for 20 minutes without interruption, without censorship. Write about your most difficult experience. If you get stuck, repeat the last sentence until something moves again. Start with when I was a child. It may feel overwhelming, but it will pass. Exercise 5. Writing the positive. You can also write towards reconciliation. Gratitude journals, diaries, letters. Grateful people tend to be happier. Write your goals. Write what you want your life to look like in 3 years and what you don't want. This creates a fork in the road for everyday decisions. Finally, you can explore the past, you can imagine the future, but perhaps the most importantly, write honestly about the present. As Juho Kusti Paasikivi put it, the beginning of all wisdom is the recognition of facts. We often build our own prisons through dishonesty. Honesty towards yourself becomes honesty towards others. And when you find a precise, meaningful expression, it doesn't open only in your mouth, but in the mind of another. The meaning of life lies in its impact on others. And what remains of us is the word, literally.